Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us as we commemorate the date January 31st, 1955, which is the end of the conflict period of the Korean War, also known as the Forgotten War. Despite being overshadowed by World War II and the war in Vietnam, the Korean War and its veterans deserve to be remembered for their bravery, courage, and valiant sacrifices. Today, I am honored to welcome Robert M. Wada, a U.S. Marine who served in the Korean War, to share more about why we have gathered to commemorate this date and a story that relates to the importance of remembering this forgotten war.
Good morning. My name is Robert Wada. I'm a Korean War veteran. I served with the Marine Corps in 1951 and 1952. Today, we are commemorating the termination of the government's official conflict period of the Korean War. The war began on June 25, 1950, with an armistice signed on July 27, 1953, and the end of the official conflict was January 31, 1955. 9 major wars engaged by the United States were in the 20th century. The Korean War from 1950 to 1953 has been considered one of the most important, but it is the least remembered. The casualties suffered by the United States in the Korean War were 33,629 combat deaths, 103,284 hospitalized wounded in action, 7,140 prisoners of war, and 8,177 missing in action, with 389 still unaccounted for. But hidden amongst these statistics are the 256 Japanese Americans who gave their lives in that war. Also hidden are the estimated 5,000 Japanese Americans who not only served predominantly in Korea, but served in the military all over the world during the Korean War. I want to just share with you a heartbreaking story that's been in the back of my mind for years about Roy Shizuka Shiraga. Roy told me this story about him when he was involved during the winter, December 1950, in the mass evacuation of the Chosin Reservoir up in the North Korea and Chinese border. Roy was badly laying on the side of the road, and he said, I was badly wounded and just trying to get help. I was laying on the side of the road. I was getting desperate, but no one would stop for me. They kept thinking I was North Korean or Chinese, so I was pretty much felt I was at the end of my life, that I knew I was not going to survive this ordeal without help. Suddenly, a friend who I had known in the army, Lawrence Yukio Nihei, came by. And he recognized me, and he immediately stopped an ambulance passing by, shoved everybody aside because it was very overcrowded. And he pushed aside an officer in the process and placed Roy on the ambulance and told the Jeep driver to get him out of here because he was a GI. And when Roy came home and told the story, he said that 3 days after he was saved by Lawrence Nihei, Lawrence himself may not have been as fortunate as Roy to have some friend come around and recognize him, but he was killed 3 days after the circumstances of saving Roy's life. Keeping that story in the back of my mind all these years, I happened to be in Las Vegas, and there was a Lady Jane Hayashida sitting on an adjacent slot machine. And I happened to strike up a conversation with her. And at that point, we became friends. And with her at that time was her nephew and niece, Kenny Hashimoto, and his wife, Diane. I kept in touch with Jane Hayashida for years. The name Nihei came up in our conversation. The next time I ran into Kenny and Diane in Las Vegas, I asked him, "Are you related to Lawrence Nihei?" And he responded affirmative. So I mentioned to him the entire story of Roy Shiraga, how he was saved by Lawrence in Korea. And Kenny became very excited because he said their family never heard another word from the government about the circumstances of how Lawrence was killed. All they know is that he was missing in action and was later determined to be killed in action for statistical purposes. My sharing this story with you is the most rewarding and self-satisfaction accomplishment for me to have brought this story to the Nihei family who have not heard any word from the government. To me, I feel it was fate or an act of God that brought me together with Jane Hayashida and brought the story and brought this closure to the Nihei family once and for all.
Thank you, Mr. Wada, for sharing Roy Shigato's story and the impact Lawrence Nihei had on his life. We will now have a wreath presentation by Kenny and Diane Hashimoto, nephew and niece of Lawrence Yukio Nihei of Hilo, Hawaii, to honor their uncle, along with Korean War veteran Bacon Sakatani, assisted by Claire Imada and Caitlin Hara. Thank you, Kenny, Diane, Bacon, Claire, and Caitlin. Next, we will have floral tributes to honor servicemen who paid the ultimate sacrifice during the Korean War. Kenny and Diane Hashimoto to honor Lawrence Yukio Nihei of Hilo, Hawaii. Ken Hayashi, President of the Veterans Memorial Court Alliance. Mitch Maki to honor Wataru Nakamura of Los Angeles, California. Private First Class Nakamura served in the U.S. Army during World War II and the Korean War. He was awarded the Medal of Honor for his selfless acts and bravery on the battlefield in the Korean War. Julie Yoshinaga to honor Corporal Louis M. Hirata of Los Angeles, California. Corporal Hirata served in the U.S. Army during World War II and the Korean War. Helen Ota to honor Ray Ito of Chino, California. Ray Ito served in the U.S. Army during the Korean War. Chris Segawa to honor Yutaka Amano of San Diego, California. Sergeant Amano served in the U.S. Army. Robert Horsting to honor Yukio Tanoe, who served in the U.S. Army. Robert M. Wada, representing Korean War veterans and honoring in a special floral tribute Private First Class Robert B. Madrid of Redlands, California. Private First Class Madrid served as a U.S. Marine during the Korean War. David Miyoshi, representing veterans of the Vietnam War. Tim Yoshinaga, representing veterans from the war in Afghanistan, Operation Desert Storm, the USS Maine, and Grenada. Corey Hayashi, representing the Nisei Week Foundation. Les Higa, representing VFW Post 1961 Gardena. James Nakamura, commander of and representing VFW Post 3670 Orange County. In Washington, D.C.'s National Mall, the Korean War Veterans Memorial has the following inscription: "Our nation honors her sons and daughters who answered the call to defend a country they never knew and a people they never met. Let us remember those brave individuals who fought valiantly against communism and paid the ultimate sacrifice in the fight for democracy and freedom. May we never forget their courage." On behalf of the Veterans Memorial Court Alliance, we would like to thank you for joining us as we commemorate the end of the conflict period of the Korean War.